In today's episode, we talk about board game accessories and board game bling, our favorites, what we like, what we need to have, and what we really don't care about. Stick around.
You're listening to the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about how we game.
Hey, folks. Welcome to the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast not about how to game or what to game, but about how we game. I'm Carlos Rafael.
I'm Rob Childers.
Michael Lorenzo.
Daniel Erdzik.
And we are here recording at Dan's Cafe in Zephyr Hills, Florida.
Correct.
The Your Turn Board Game Cafe. Dan, thanks again for hosting.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure as always.
The beautiful cafe in Zephyr Hills, Florida. It's one of the first, maybe the first in the Tampa Bay area that provides a gaming library that's behind us that you can see for food, drink, and gaming entertainment. So thanks for having us out.
Thank you.
And today's topic is going to be about how we bling out our games. Things such as accessories or those ancillary items that we buy that aren't exactly part of the game, but that help us in gaming or make us feel better about our games. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go round robin, is my thought. I'll start, I'll deal out, and then we'll just go left of dealer around the table and just name a thing that's important to you that you like about blinging out your game, and then we'll just discuss each of them. How important is it? Is it, what do you think of it? That kind of stuff. And I'll lead off with my one thing that I feel every game needs as an accessory, and that's card sleeves.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Done. Okay, moving on. Next.
Can't be that easy. Expound on the topic, please.
Card sleeves to me are they're like the most basic of basic necessities for accessories of a board game. I struggle with shuffling a deck of cards, even like a bicycle deck of cards. We're talking like a $3 deck, right? Just like a basic $3 deck of cards. To watch them have the dog ears get on them, to watch them get bent and get creased, and where you can start telling what card is what, really bothers me. And that's where card sleeves for me really come in play, is just allowing us to let that lifespan of that card be even longer without it being damaged or torn or nicked.
I'm sure Dan's going to have a lot to say about that. I mean, you just sleeved how many games? I think you gave us a count at one point about how many sleeves.
Yeah, it's 1,200 games we went through, punched and sleeved, and my order from Sleeve Kings was 140,000 sleeves.
Wow.
It took about 4 months.
And you got more in
And
recently.
I just got more in recently, yes.
Yeah.
More to sleeve.
Because I ran out of some sizes.
Obviously, for a board game cafe owner, I mean, this has got to be a big thing for you. I mean, everything's got to be sleeved, I imagine.
One of the most vulnerable items are the cards.
Yeah.
If something happens to the cards, if a card is marked in any way, whether it's bent or something nicked on it,
Yep.
you're going to see that coming up in the deck, and you're going to know what's going to come up if you've played that game more than one time. If something happens to the board or a chit or a token, those are sitting out there in their public knowledge. They're not hidden. That's less likely to impact the game as much as a damaged card that you could identify would.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, before I give my unpopular opinion, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I mean, Carlos started off by saying all games need to be. My exception is if it is a card game, but it's typically like an $8 to $10 card game that's readily available at any time. I typically will not spend the money to sleeve that particular game, only because it's only going to be $8 to replace it. But I will agree that I personally love shuffling cards that are sleeved. I am okay at a riffle shuffle, but I personally like to grab half of them and just shove them right into each
You're
other.
a masher?
I'm a masher with sleeves. You can't do that without sleeves, and it just, in my opinion, I can get a better shuffle that way than an actual riffle shuffle. And again, if we're talking penny sleeves, I prefer not to use those. Anything from like a 60 a millimeter up, not millimeter, but I forget how they measure
Microns.
it. Microns. Thank you.
Yeah.
When you get into like the Dragon Shield sleeves that are 100 plus, those are like primo, especially with the matte finish on them. But anything from like a 60 up, I would definitely prefer that, and more, and I've actually just put an order in through the cafe at here. Yeah, I just prefer sleeves without, or than without.
Yeah, let me be the opposite opinion, and I just see Nick Obin has chimed in on the chat, and I don't know whether it was trying to incite a difference of opinion or whether he agrees with me. But his comment here was, "I hate card sleeves, and I won't sleeve a single one of my games," and I agree wholeheartedly. I'm in the Tom Vassell opinion on this, in that I don't care if my cards get damaged. I think that's a sign of wear on a game. If cards have a little nicks and it gives them a little character, it shows that I've played that game. I really enjoy that game. If worst ever comes to worst, then I'll replace the cards. I'll replace the game if I have to. But I've never been in the sleeving camp, and this will come to something we'll probably talk a little bit about as we go along. But one of the big arguments on this is as you start talking about pimping out games and spending money on other accessories, the question is, do you buy more games, or do you pimp out the games that you currently have? And so, again, we can get into that a little more after we've gone around the table here and talked about some of our favorite accessories. But that's a big topic, I think, that's been debated for years that I've seen in the board game hobby, is how do you spend that extra money? Do you if sleeving a game is going to be $40, that's another game I could buy, So
True.
You got to make that decision. Is that do I need another game, or do I really want to take the games I really like and pimp those out and make them really sweet primo components and everything?
So my question for you is, and I don't want anybody listening to take this the wrong way, because this is me I am talking about. What is your OCD level? Because for me, if I get a game that's perfect, me personally, I would rather that game stay perfect. I don't want to see the edges of the card start to brown from, oils from your hands.
Yeah.
So you being the person that does not like sleeves, do you...
Well, in general, and I guess obviously there's different levels and there's different things.
That's what I'm asking, is your level.
Right. So it would, and as Carlos and others will attest who have gamed with me for a while, I am the game scaper at the table. Everything, I do have a level of OCD. Everything's got to be just right. Carlos messes with me intentionally sometimes when we play games. He'll take cards and intentionally throw them a little off because he knows within a couple of minutes I'm going to go back around and square everything up and make everything nice and neat again.
Yeah.
So when we talk about OCD in general, I certainly have a certain level of OCD, but again, I think to me a little bit is that investment part of it. When I think about, I can buy these sleeves, or I can buy this extra board, Scythe as an example, the oversized board. My thought starts to be, Carlos has that board. If I want to get in on Scythe and I really want to play the nice pimped out version, he's already got his all pimped out. I'm going to go play his.
Okay.
But yeah, for my own games like...
No, I can't agree.
No,
I've been trying to be quiet and not interject. I mean, you probably see me biting my
I knew
tongue.
that was coming. Go ahead. No.
The most cringe moment for me in gaming is watching a card unsleeved hit the floor. Because there's always that person that's just going to put that foot out and step on that card and slide it back closer to them, right? As it scrapes that sand and dirt across its face. And then it comes back to the table, and it's got that scuff. You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking
that
about.
series of scuffs over the back of the card, where from now on, whenever that card is dealt, I'll be like, and as we've played a lot of Lost Cities,
That was the example I was going to give.
Blue 8,
Yeah.
that's the Blue 8. You have the Blue 8, sir.
And there is something there to be said for component quality in the original game, because
Agreed.
Lost Cities is a game that is infamous for being, even though it's a great game, if you haven't played Lost Cities, I highly encourage you to go play it. A quick, easy two-player card game. One of the few games my wife will actually play. She's definitely not a gamer, but the card quality in that game, I don't know if they just expected people to replace those cards every few years, but those cards are, you can breathe on them wrong and they'll mark, or they'll fold. And so I think since and that game's been out for 10 years, I would say. So, I mean, I think we've made some major advances. We've taken some big steps with designers or with the distributors and people who produce games and game components. And you don't see nearly as much of that quality, low quality components in games as much anymore. But
any card can get damaged, and,
It can.
and that's the reason for sleeves. And I think we'll park this one a bit because this one can go for a while.
yeah, we could keep going on it.
Yeah. So that was my first accessory that I wanted to bring to the table. Rob, what you got?
Well, one of the few things, and this is a quick one, and I think this is a basic one that a lot of people can agree with, just from what you see on the internet, is
Hold my coffee.
yeah, it's metal coins. And so, yeah, and I actually have just an example here of some metal coins that I acquired
Did you
tonight.
have those
Some
in your
from Mike.
pocket?
I did. So Mike brought them for me tonight. These are for in the Hall of the Mountain King. He had an extra set of coins that he acquired through
Hold
the
on.
Kickstarter.
This is an audio medium. I want people to hear this.
Want to open it up? Yeah, open it up, pour them out. There you go. But metal coins,
There's
I mean,
a sack of metal coins.
yeah, there's the age-old. I mean, we've come a long way with these either point counters or money in games. And when we go back to Monopoly and paper money, and I think a lot of people will agree that that's kind of the low end of the spectrum now. Anytime you've got paper money,
Yes.
paper money bends, paper money sticks together, paper money rips and tears easily.
It's a pain in the butt to manage too.
Absolutely,
I mean,
yeah, they stick
yeah.
together. and you
Even
can't
even
leave them
cardboard
out.
tokens.
Yeah.
Cardboard tokens to me, when the edges fray.
I was going to say that's our next step up. You know, you go from paper money to now you go to cardboard, and you've got different gauges or different thicknesses of cardboard, and some of the better, or I won't say better, some of the more expensive games, higher quality games will have thicker cardboard so that it doesn't get damaged or beat up nearly as easily.
Yep.
And we're going to discuss those fraying edges when we come around to me.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So Dan's
okay.
got some
Tokens,
unframed
yes.
edges, but one of the debates that I've seen recently with metal coins is: do you invest in metal coins that are designed specifically for that game, or do you use things like other types of coins that you can substitute in?
Simply, the metal coins, when you have them in a game, just the feel of them completely changes the
Oh,
way
yeah.
that you're playing the game. I mean,
Yeah.
just the weight, it
Yeah.
just seems to play better, even though it has no bearing on keeping track of the resource or whatever it is at the time. It
Yep.
just seems to heighten the gaming experience.
I would agree with that. Just to chime in also, I used to, anytime that I kickstarted a game, or I would always get the coins. But recently, there's only certain games that I'll get them for now. If I find them very unique,
Yep.
like specifically for that game, whether the theme fits 100%, or then I'll be more inclined to get them. But I know that Carlos is going to chime in on this. Recently picked up, and we discussed this last week, I believe, as well. The Iron Clays.
Yep.
I will tell you right now, the one game that immediately came to mind that made me, like, that sealed the deal for me was Power Grid.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely.
Because the paper money that
Yeah.
comes with that game is just abysmal.
Yeah.
And again, it's the weight, it's the feel of those chips. It feels more substantial. The only negative that I would give on it is you will sometimes get those people with nervous hands, and they are just constantly
Yeah.
Riffle shuffling the chips.
or tapping the
Yeah.
table with them.
Card
or-
players and things do that. Yeah.
But I will absolutely excuse that just to have that bling for my game.
Yeah.
But
And where I was headed, just to wrap up real quick, and Nick Oslo just chimed in, and I think he may have got a sense that I was going there, is one of the big things I've been seeing lately is do you invest in the coins made specifically for that game, or a lot of people are saying now that go get real coins for half the price a lot of times. If it's a, let's say, an Asian-based game,
Yep.
just go
Yep.
acquire some Japanese coins in different denominations and then fill those in as far as the point markers or the money substitute, and it can be a savings, and it's authentic. Obviously, you've got real money so
Right.
that you're using in the game. So that's something I'm hearing a lot about lately. So I may try that with some of my games.
No, I that's why I went with the Iron Clays. It's that Iron Clays are just generically enough to fit so many broad games. and it's going to replace metal coins for me. Like I have Scythe metal coins. I have
Whoa, hold on a second. Don't go.
I don't know about
side
replacing
metal
scythe,
coins.
yeah.
Come on now.
Well, no, I already have them. They're not going to get replaced.
Okay,
But
all
for any new games, right? So
Okay.
like Shogun, I'm not going to go buy metal coins for Shogun. I'm going to use iron clays, right? Instead of seeking out a like Rob said, a specific coin for a specific game, iron clays is going to be that for me. That's going to save me money.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell myself when I spent all that money on them. I'm investing.
So you better use
in
them now.
the long run.
You better use
It's
them
a
now.
long-term investment.
Yep.
Dan?
Well, on the same topic still, if you don't want the iron clays or the poker chip style, there's been dozens of Kickstarters that have come out where they have generic metal coins in different denominations. If you want to have that metal feel, you can use in just any game with different themes, whether it's
Right.
Japanese or
I was
fantasy.
going to say a lot of them are making them in those different themes,
and
sci-fi.
those cost about the same amount if you were to buy the
Yeah.
real money. So
Okay,
you can
yeah.
also go that route too.
Yeah.
Mike, what you got? Michael, what you got for accessories?
Okay, so mine is based off of mostly Kickstarters. I would say 90 to 95% of the time, if it is available, I will always get the neoprene mat.
Oh,
Yes.
I hadn't thought of that.
In my opinion, especially on a heavy card game, having a neoprene mat, if you're playing on a coffee table or just a hard table, picking up cards, and this is another good thing with sleeves, is they make it a lot easier to pick these cards up. But if you don't have sleeves and you're playing on a neoprene mat, the one thing I love is you can gently press on the corner of a card. You can pick it up very easily. The dice, if you're chucking dice and you don't happen to have a dice tray, you can chuck them on a neoprene mat and they won't go shooting off the table as easily
Clanking around everywhere.
as if it was a hard surface.
Yeah.
Also better to play at night with a neoprene mat if you don't want to wake up your family.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Those glass table homes.
And
I've done that.
Yeah, and in the case of, we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, Champions of Midgard, where it includes the expansion boards on a single mat,
Yeah.
where you can just roll it out, you're ready to go for that particular game. But other games have that as well. But in my opinion, I probably spent more on neoprene mats for Kickstarters than any other bling
Accessory.
type of accessory.
I would second that. I'm in the same situation. Neoprene mat on the Kickstarter, automatic add-on.
Pretty much.
Most of the time, unless it's a generic mat just to have a mat, if it doesn't have spaces for cards or gameplay or a replication of the board, then I don't bother.
Right. And it does help with, because sometimes it will, like you said, tells you where to place certain cards, or it may even explain the sequence of turns that you would take during a game, so everybody can see it. It's centered in the middle of the table. But yeah, I agree.
And even in the look, the aesthetics. I'm all for, I guess I would say, some shiny boards and some nice bright games. But even just Champions of Midgard, as an example, when you get the base board out of the box, it is a pretty shiny, pretty colorful board. But when you get that neoprene mat, everything has a little bit of a washed out, in a good way,
Right.
kind of a lot washed out look to it. And
More
I
of a
really,
matte.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
that
You don't
look.
get that
So-
shine where the light is reflecting and you
reflection.
can't see.
Yep,
Exactly.
Yep, yep.
See, but I'm coming from a different approach. Being a big guy, I guess I'm speaking for all those big guys at the table here today. I like to eat. I like to eat while gaming. And that's where sleeves come in, and that's where neoprene comes in. Because if I get a little moisture on my hands, a little moisture dew from my cup on the neoprene, it's not going to have any permanent damage to it. You look at my neoprene stuff, and you'll see stains. And I'm fine with that because it's no permanent damage. It's just a little bit of the cosmetic to it. Michael's cringing over there.
You don't want to get like a neoprene sleeve?
There you go.
A wetsuit.
Hold on a second. That's something?
Is that a thing?
That's a thing.
Scotch guard it. You can Scotch guard it.
I like
Trademark.
Cheeto marks. You'll see Cheeto marks on my neoprene because I got sleeves.
You need to get out of here now. Cheeto marks.
I'm a don't look at me.
Oh,
I'm a
no.
monster.
He is a
Don't look at
monster.
me. I'm a monster.
Carlos, come on, man.
And the quick
But
question.
when everything's sleeved and everything's neoprene, nothing's going to get damaged. What's there to get damaged?
The quick question that came up online, I just got to ask about, is about storage of mats, and so that's always a big concern.
Right. So there's two things. I saw that question from Nick. That two ways that I can think of right off the top of my head is if you have, depending on your board game layout, wherever you store your games, if you have any kind of rack, you can actually use a trouser hanger
I've seen that.
has little clips.
Seen that? Yep.
And you can just clip the ends of each mat or 2 or 3 mats,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just hang them, and they stay straight. You don't have to worry about curling them up in that particular case.
We're currently wrestling. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
We're currently wrestling with that here because we have about 100 mats that aren't here yet.
I've never met Matt.
Because
Has
we
he been
want
here before?
to,
Lots of mats.
we want to have them available. So we're working on our storage solution, and we are going to put them in mailing tubes, and then we're going to have a rack that they're going to go on labeled, so you'll know which one is for each game.
That's a good idea,
Once we
too.
get that all set up and in here, we'll have that available for everyone to use too. But that took us a while to figure out how are we going to put 100 mats out and organize it, make it look right, and not just have them laying all over the place for people to leaf through.
True. The other one that I was going to state for smaller mats, that it doesn't work very well for larger mats like the Champions of Midgard, but like like single player mats on Amazon or wherever. I know that they sell a wall hanger for when you roll up vinyl. So it's kind of like a semicircle with a hole that goes through, maybe 2 rows.
I think those are wine racks.
Well,
I
you
really
can use
believe
those
those are
as
wine
well,
racks.
but the ones with the vinyl, you can usually get about 12 in a single, and you can mount that on the wall, roll them up nice and tight, and just slide them right in, and then you can see, you have a pretty good view of all of them, how they
But if
how
you
they
use
look
like a
that.
3-foot one, they'll start to flop on the ends.
They might start to flop, or they may not actually fit within, you may not be able to insert them in the holder, so.
And that is the solution we came up with. We found mailing tubes that fit exactly in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we're going to use those racks with the mailing tubes labeled to
Excellent.
store our mats.
That'll work.
Innovation.
Yeah. What about you? Do you guys have any ideas of
Storage?
Storage?
They're all under the futon in the game room.
Oh, I should have known that
Yeah.
with you.
Mine are rolled up. in
But
the
they're all
corner.
everyone's in a box. I keep all every time they send you a new mat, right? It comes in that UPS or FedEx triangle box.
Right.
Don't throw them away.
Oh no.
Never
Yeah.
throw those away because those are perfect mat storage tubes that you can keep them dust free, safe. And because I am not into vertically storing my mats anymore. I say anymore because I learned the lesson. I have a lot of X-Wing mats. I have a lot of 3x3 mats. A lot of miniature war game tabletop mats, so 6-foot long mats.
Right.
And if you store them vertically, over time, the weight of the top of the mat will push down and scrunch the bottom of the mat.
Oh, interesting.
And then when you pull the mat out, you'll see it'll have almost a quilted pattern. Like
Oh,
that
because you're bunching
creased
up
in.
on the bottom end.
Yes.
the material.
The material
part of it.
begins to bunch up at the bottom, and then you get this creasing at the bottom that just doesn't go away easily. So, I've gone away from storing them vertically, which was a lot easier, to storing them horizontally underneath the futon.
Okay.
That's where I keep all my big mats.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I only have a few mats. I've got 90% of the time they're laid out on the table and cover my table, my big table in my gaming area. I've got one I think that's been rolled up for a while, stored vertically in the corner. So I'll have to pull that out soon and see how destroyed it is. Now that you've warned me about that, but the hanging is what I've seen. I've seen a couple of big game libraries under the Dice Towers library. They've got a rolling kind of a metal clothes rack. It's
Right,
just one bar,
right.
and they've just got hangers on there. And I think they've numbered all of them for each of the games. And so you just kind of page through
very
the
cool.
hangers and find the number of the mat that you're looking for, and then they can roll that around, take that to conventions and things like that. So that's what I've seen. Yeah.
Very cool.
Accessories, Dan?
Yeah, Dan's turn.
I'm going to steer away from accessories and talk more about modification of the items within the game.
Okay. Yeah.
Whether it's, I'll just rattle off a couple quick and we can zone in on what we want to. Whether it's painting the minis in the game, chopping the bases off and putting clear bases on the minis, especially for a game like Mansions of Madness, where
yes.
with those big bases
Big
you
one.
can no longer see the board.
Yep.
So with the clear bases, it really enhances the gaming experience. One that we were talking about earlier today, for war games or any game that comes with chits or tokens that have sharp corners on them, you get yourself a token clipper and you clip those corners around them off. It completely changes the way that those tokens play, stack, don't stick together, no longer fray. So modifications of the games, or some people may even build their own inserts for inside the game box instead of buying them. Anything like that along modifying. I know some people cringe because when you go to resell it, is that going to say that the person going to buy it say, well, you've completely cacked off the bases and put on clear ones, or you've clipped the corners on all this? I mean, in my opinion, it enhances the game,
Absolutely.
but maybe they don't think that now.
Yeah.
They don't want to pay the same price that you normally would get for it.
Very true.
One of the first things I do to modify my games is I take all the tokens and I grab a Sharpie and I color the edges of the tokens. So in the Twilight Imperium 4th edition, I went and bought the multi-range of colors of the Sharpies, and each faction is a different color, like color scheme. So I found the closest color marker to that faction, and I colored every one of those faction tokens. So when you see those tokens laid out on the table, all their edges. So if you're the humans, right, all your edges are blue.
Right.
You know, and if I'm the space turtles, all my edges are green, and the embers are red. So it really makes them pop. And then when you black out a token like the strategy tokens in Twilight Imperium 4th edition, you know, the big giant token boards almost. When you black them out on the perimeter, they just look better on the table. The graphics on the front just pop because you don't see the cardboard edges anymore. The cardboard edges are gone. So that's one of the first things I modify.
And that works really well with bases of minis too. After you paint them, if you don't black out that edge, if you don't completely paint that base a nice solid color, if you're not going to put a terrain or something on it, it just takes away from everything you've done.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Did you pick that up when we played X-Wing? I know when we played X-Wing, you had to take your some of your debris, or what do they call them?
Well, when you play X-Wing, you bring your own obstacle tokens, you bring your own tokens, right? And then you play against other people. And at the beginning of it, you would leave the table and you'd end up with some of their tokens and they'd end up some with yours.
Yeah.
So then I learned from folks there that they would highlight the perimeter of theirs like a pink. So you instantly knew those asteroids are his, right? And those tokens, those focus tokens are his because they're all highlighted pink on the perimeter. So that's where I picked that up.
Yeah, so when you started doing that, I know then people started commenting on it. It's like, oh, that's kind of a nice look when it's instead of having you've got an asteroid or something that's mostly black, and then you look along the edge and it's all gray, cardboard gray around the edge. But if you just took a black marker and go around it, it really enhanced the just the general aesthetic. Something as small as that kind of added a little extra bling, a little pizzazz to the game. So intentionally done initially as a resource to make sure people don't take your stuff, and then turned into an upgrade on the game. So that was cool.
I was just going to add a comment talking about cardboard tokens for Arkham Horror Living Card Game. All the tokens, you have tokens in a bag that you're going to be drawing from. Well, I saw this online. I know a lot of people are doing it. But if you get like coin collector, the plastic coin collector cases that are actually round, they sell a size specifically where your Arkham Horror tokens will fit inside
I've seen
them.
That. That's nice.
And it's basically you're encapsulating it in plastic.
Yep.
Not only does it make the tokens last longer, but when you have them all in a bag that you're reaching into, it feels better, and it's just so much easier to grab that one token out. And again, it's the feel of it, and to me, it like totally changed the whole token drawing portion of that game.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that till he did it, and I purchased the rest of the ones that he had and did that, and it completely changed.
Arkham Horror, right? A Fantasy Flight Games company.
Yep.
X-Wing of Fantasy Flight. So I guess Fantasy Flight Games has made us have to figure out how to save tokens. They also made a game called Rune Wars. Rune Wars, the miniatures game. And in Rune Wars, the miniatures game, you had these runes. Rob, you've played this with me.
Yeah.
The runes are tokens, big fat tokens, and you're supposed to throw them, right? So it's almost like casting lots in this mystical feeling. Throw them on the table, and my heart just like sank. Like, well, if it hits the table hard, the edge is going to crease, and then they're just not going to last. So I bought the coin cases for them. And you're right. I no longer had a problem with just shucking them, shaking them, and then throw them on the table because I knew they were going to be just fine. And if the case cracked or
Just
scratched,
replace it.
just replace it.
Yep.
And I got to jump in real quick on this whole thing with the clipping of corners on cards and tokens. I never even knew that was a thing until about a month ago. I was watching somebody do it online, and I was like, man, that's ingenious. But I guess there's a couple companies now that have done Kickstarters or whatever where they specifically sell them just to cut round off corners on cards. And,
I'll do that on
That's a
cards,
wargaming
too.
thing. That's like
Has that
'cause
been
in the-
around?
Oh yeah, in wargaming and historically has always been you cut out your own stuff, or that when they come to you, it's just like a square, like a perfectly punched square. So wargamers historically have always had to cut their own corners for the tokens.
No
So
pun
that
intended.
corner clipping.
Corners, yeah.
Because when you're stacking chits in a war game, if you get 6, 7 of them and they got the regular corners and the little frayed pieces, they stick together, they fall over
Right.
easy. Once
And
you
they
round
start
the
to
corner-
fray because if the corners are sharp, those corners will start to fray, and that top layer will literally peel off. I mean that. And, that
And as
just,
soon as you put it through the clipper, it kind of pushes that corner down a little bit.
yep.
When it rounds
It bevels it. It
and
almost like
yep,
it almost like
does.
bevels it.
Yep.
And it kind of seals it shut.
And you never have that fraying issue ever again.
I have a corner clipper.
Of course I do.
Do you have a corner clipper?
Of course.
Rob, do you have a corner?
No, like I said, I didn't never
Michael,
knew it was
do
a
you,
thing.
do you have a
yeah.
corner clipper, Michael?
I have a bogus corner clipper that came with my my laminating machine.
Yeah, that doesn't work. I had the same one.
I
It
guess
won't work on tokens, but it works for me. It works great on the actual laminates because if you leave a 90-degree corner on a
that's an
laminate, you're
emergency
going to be
room visit.
slicing your
Yeah.
fingers
yeah,
up.
yeah, it could be dangerous.
Yeah.
I got some toenail clippers. Will those help? Yeah, clip
Speaking
off
of
the corners,
lamination,
yeah.
right? That takes me to my next accessory,
Oh, okay.
which is big for me. There's a site called the Esoteric Order of Gamers, and if you've been gaming for a long time, you've probably been to that site and or downloaded something from that site. Cheat sheets. This guy does amazing cheat sheets for board games. He just takes all the rules and condenses them down into like one page, makes it super simple to understand, and sets it up. So all you got to do is hit print two-sided. Boom, it's done.
Yep.
Right. Laminate them, corner clip them. That way
You have
they
to.
don't
You
fray.
have to.
Or otherwise they'll fray, and then they'll always fit in the box. I'm big on providing quick setup, easy to understand quick sheets.
Yeah.
And the lamination and the corner clipping is a must for each one of those.
Yeah, little player references, something you can hand out to everybody before the game, something
Absolutely.
that you can put on the table that reminds people what the in-game scoring is, if there's different multiple ways to score at the end of the game, just something. But yeah, you turned me onto that probably about a year ago, and I haven't been on there as much as I should be. I should probably be on there looking for some of the more of the games that I have, but especially in teaching games, I can imagine that'd make a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never heard of that website before.
Esoteric Order of Gamers. I'll put it in the description.
Is it like one person that runs it, or
It's a
is that-
guy. It's a
Yeah,
guy.
one
Like
guy.
he's like in.
Is he a BGG member?
He
sure he
does
is. He's
post
got to be.
The links on the BGG
Oh, okay.
sometimes for
All
the under the files.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember his name, and I believe he lives where the Lord of the Rings was filmed. Help me out here. Lord of the Rings movies filmed.
Oh,
in
is it New Zealand?
New Zealand.
Yeah.
And he puts on videos still. So he'll open and unbox games. He has a great channel. I'll post a link to his channel and his website in the description when I post this to YouTube. Esoteric Order of Gamers, amazing.
Excellent.
And he's been doing this for over, I'm going to say 15 years, because I was printing them out before I started working at with you at the insurance company.
Right, right.
So that was 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So this guy's been doing it almost 20 years that I know of.
Yeah.
I've been
Wow.
putting that stuff in my boxes to this day.
Awesome.
That's good.
We'll go around one more time.
Yeah, I'll just dabble into the whole. There are companies now built just on aftermarket upgrades to games, and so without jumping into specific ones, one that I particularly like is upgrading cardboard components for games that I like to either plastic or to. I'm actually a big fan of wooden components, and I know. The trend is now actually is getting away from wood. Like I see a lot of Kickstarters and stuff in the last year that the base game comes with wooden components, but if you pay extra, you can get plastic components or you can get acrylic components. But I like the feel of wood components, and especially I think it's a huge step up from cardboard. But I've done that with several of my games. With Wingspan, I'm looking to do it, and some of the other games that I have. But I like the feel of wood. I know that the Quacks of Quedlinburg has really nice components now. There's a couple of companies that are making because they come with the cardboard. And again, that's another bag puller where you're pulling them out of a bag constantly. And from what I've heard, I haven't played that game enough to know, but those really wear just from reaching in the bag and pulling them out. It doesn't take long before they start rubbing off the surfaces and starts really wearing on that cardboard. But from what I understand, there's several companies now that make really nice either acrylic or plastic upgrades that you just substitute those out for the cardboard pieces, and those last practically forever. So
yeah. Just to comment on that, I like plastic components, but I also like wood components, and some games, depending on, I'm just going to use In the Hall of the Mountain King as an example. Yeah. When I backed that one on Kickstarter, I got the deluxe edition. And then during checkout, you could add, or did they give us the wooden components with the? I don't think they did, because I know
I went back and looked, and they said that if you bought the upgraded version with the plastic components, you could pay, I think it was like $11 or $21 extra to get the original wooden one still also.
So that's what I did, and I was thinking, just in case. Unfortunately, in my opinion, there's two types of components. There's like this. Like a pickaxe or like an axe type of little piece, and then also a wheelbarrow. Both of those are plastic components that were quote-unquote upgraded components from wood. I played it a couple of times with those particular pieces. I didn't care for them. I actually went, because I paid extra for the wooden pieces, I actually swapped them out
back to the wood
for the lower, quote-unquote, lower quality wood pieces, because I liked the way that they feel, and they were more substantial on the board. So I did that, but they also upgraded the totems or the statues and the bases that are plastic.
Yeah, I saw those.
But I prefer the plastic ones of those over the wooden ones. Yeah. So I kind of swapped those out a little bit. So I think it has to do with how good that component is actually made in plastic or wood, but I agree with you. That wooden feel, the tactile feel of that, I do typically prefer that over a plastic piece.
And this will shock everybody, but I think it could also have to do with the theming in the game. So if you're playing a Robinson Crusoe,
whoa.
I know theme's
you
not my
talking
thing.
about theme?
But like in a Robinson Crusoe, you're shipwrecked on an island. Plastic pieces probably wouldn't make nearly as much sense as having wooden pieces in a game like that.
Agreed.
So it could have something to do with the theme of the game, and so maybe game makers probably should think about that, and they probably do. But they should consider that, I think, in what kind of pieces they put out.
True.
And maybe I hold my nose up a little bit at this, but when I go to Rob's house and play his version of Pandemic and the pieces are plastic.
I don't have the upgrades, no.
I've got the first edition. It's all wood in there. What is this?
I know.
What is this store-bought stuff here?
Sometimes you get what you get.
What is this?
Yeah.
What is this Target version of Pandemic that I'm
Easy
touching here? All right, Mike, what accessories do you want to finish off on?
I've been trying to think of what else, but I think I'm going to take the easy route, because I've been going through my mind what is the thing that I buy most of as far as blinging. And I'm a big one on, if your game takes a lot of time to set up, I am a huge fan of inserts that help speeding, tearing down as well as setting up a game. A lot of games, a lot of times you're throwing chits in a bag, and you got to throw them on the table, or you might have cases I know that are included with some games.
Well, if you're Carlos, you just scrape them into a box and then push the lid down as hard as you can.
This is correct.
An Altoid container.
Yeah,
but
I resemble that remark.
Right. But if you have an insert where you can just kind of pinch them and pull all of them out and stick them on the table, and that's where they are, or a perfect example, I know we keep going back to this game, but Champions of Midgard, the folded space insert. Why are you making a face?
I think back to Dice Tower East.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, Escape WinterCon.
I think it was Escape WinterCon.
Escape WinterCon. When I busted out my Champions of Midgard game, and literally the box I had shoved everything
just
in,
pieces everywhere,
and squashed the lid down.
I vomited in my mouth a little bit when I saw that. Anyway, so with the Valhalla expansion, where you get the chits when your dice or your Vikings die and you get the chits. Well, the insert actually holds all the chits with all the dice. So, you just have to pull them out and put it on the table, and you're set.
A Scythe. Scythe is
the
another broken
one.
token version. You just hand everybody their box, and it's got all their pieces, and it just makes the setup easier.
Yeah.
Wasteland Express was a good one with that. Yep.
Yes, agreed. So anyway, go ahead, Dan.
I tend to take the cheap route when it comes to that, because
Well,
I have too many things
yeah.
to buy inserts for.
Correct.
So
Your
I hit
situation
the Dollar General.
Well, I was
and
gonna say the dollar store.
Get
I
the
bought-
little
yep.
1 ounce containers.
Plastic snap-on lids.
And
Yep.
when I'm punching a game and unboxing it for the first time, if I can see in the rule book that every player of a certain color gets this many items, I will put one little box for each one.
Start them out.
That's a good
So
idea.
as soon as we go to play, you're orange,
here's
you're
your box.
purple, open
Yep.
your box, done.
Yep.
Can't argue with
And
that.
Great
they,
idea.
And they cost, $1 for 10 of them.
Yep. I've done that. Yep.
Yep.
Great idea.
So
All right, Dan, I think you got the last
You gonna wrap us up,
word
Dan?
on
You
the
got-
accessories.
Got one more?
Mine's not exactly game specific, but it goes along the same lines of organization. If a game doesn't come with them, buying specific deck holders of different sizes.
Oh,
So when
yes.
you have decks, especially with sleeve cards, you get to a certain height, they will slide and just go away on you.
Yeah.
I like to buy, I have some broken token ones that are pretty tall.
Like
so
and the stackable ones too.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have that big Raptor one that can hold like 18 decks all in one little area for something like an Arkham Horror when you have 18 decks in the game.
Yeah.
And you can take up this tiny little bit of table space. And all your cards are there and your discard piles are there. Having card organization along with token organization, little bowls or I forget what it's called, the little plastic things that I have here.
Little Zen bins.
Zen
Oh,
bins,
yeah, Zen bins,
exactly.
yeah.
Having those on the table to keep everything neat
Yep.
really goes a long way.
Agreed.
Well, anything that helps speed up setup or takedown is huge. Yep.
Yeah, I use the broken token card holders, the ones the ones you're talking about, the wooden ones, that for something like point salad, right? Because I'm my organization skills with my hands. If I hit one deck, I'm going to slide a whole bunch of other cards around because you got multiple decks
Yep.
sitting on the table, and I'm able to slot them in their 3 slots, and then right in front of them is going to be their next 2 cards that come out. So everything just kind of stays organized. I've used it for Mansions of Madness because there's so many multiple decks involved in Mansions of Madness
And
Second
they're
Edition.
smaller cards, so they're
Yeah,
harder
they're
to
mini
stack
cards.
up. Right.
So
Right.
I'll use those card holders
For the mini cards,
for
yeah,
the mini
that-
cards
that
because you
makes a
got
big
these taller
difference.
stacks. Same for Twilight Imperium 4th Edition because their stacks are tall, and of course I sleeve them all, so they're all sleeved. So the stacks are real tall. For that same reason, I'll use those card holders to just
yeah. organize
that stuff. And what's nice is because they're elevated, you can almost have a discard right underneath them.
Yes.
Right, so as you draw, you just discard them right underneath, and that stays organized as well.
I just want to point out, David joined us online. He says Zen bins are the best, and I agree. Those little Zen bins, you can pick up. I don't know what the cost of them are. I've got 8 or 10 of them at home, but they are nice. They just snap together. They hold a good amount of components, and like you say, especially if you've got something where at the beginning of a game everybody's got a certain, not a huge amount, but a certain small amount of components they need. You just pass them out to everybody, and you're good to go.
And what we did here is in each cart next to the table, they're not game specific, but there are like 3 or 4 Zen bins, a couple little containers, some deck holders from the same ones that you have in your Welcome To.
Yep.
Those are Zen bins as
Those
well.
are Zen bins as
Yep.
well. Yeah, we have those. That way you can just grab them out of the bin, organize the game, and get to playing without having to worry about things being knocked all over the place and making it easier to find things instead of doing what the rule book says and says, pile all the tokens next to the board.
No.
That drives me insane. I have to have them in their little bins.
Yeah.
I think the best use of Zen bins I've had so far was Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a campaign game. It's a
Yep.
full-on campaign game. There's no other way to play it. And every player gets their own deck for their character. And that deck, you build it as you play that campaign over time. So I bought Zen bins for every single player. And after each game, your cards will go into that deck. And you're always reshuffling that deck because it's only maybe 20 cards deep.
Yeah, at most.
Right? So you're shuffling through it, and you're reshuffling. So the fact that the Zen bins, the lids can be used for discards, made it perfect for gameplay.
Exactly.
And then also at the end of the day, right? All right, that's my deck. That's what it looks like right now with all these weaknesses and all these cards and the skills that I've added. Pop the lid on it, throw it in the box, ready for next game.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know about
You should
throwing
place
it.
it in the
yeah.
box
nicely,
in
gently.
an organized manner.
Without just
Yeah.
shuffling it off the edge of the table into
You
the
don't,
box.
yeah, next to the Altoid container.
Hoping you hit the box. Yeah.
And the
I
Cheeto
lick my
stains,
fingers from the
exactly.
Cheetos.
You got orange Zen bins.
And it keeps things nice and tidy on the table. So as you
It
mentioned,
does.
if you have the little box there and you choose to discard into that, I know some of us did during that campaign, some of us did not. But if you did, it kept that your space nice and tidy. And so the only thing I was going to mention is just I think most of us start with, and it's almost becoming a faux pas for game manufacturers not to include is I think we all start out with baggies, and there's nothing wrong with baggies in games. I mean, it's better than nothing. I know, again, we're talking about purchasing upgrades that go beyond that, but a lot of the game manufacturers now are including at least, baggies in their games, and some do better at that than others. I know I've got some games that I bought recently where they give me 20 baggies, and I can't even find 20 different kinds of components in the game, and so I'm wondering, have I missed something here? Is there...
They just got a bulk discount. That's all.
That must have been. So they just throw a lot of them in there. So sometimes I'm in the dark a bit, but not to disparage people who use baggies. I used baggies for 10 years, my first 10 years of gaming, and just recently I've started kind of upgrading to plastic and Zen bins and some other ways to store things. But baggies are great as well. I mean, they help you separate things. They're easy. They're quick. You just slide them in, Ziploc them closed.
And some games are fine with baggies.
Yeah,
There are some games that I have that I would just prefer a baggie instead of having something like hard within the box. Just this is okay to throw in a bag, and it's totally fine, and everything fits like it should. But there are times that call for separate bins.
I'm a baggie guy. I am a
There's
baggie
nothing wrong
guy.
with that.
Yeah.
And the only time I don't use baggies, I use the Zen bins for any tokens type stuff, cubes, token, things that we're gonna dig into, get our hands in during the game. I'll use Zen bins for that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, if it's just set up, it's baggies, and I combine it with a dynamo. I take that dynamo, and Rob, you know this. I'm very organized that way, believe it or not. I will toss the insert, right? First thing I do is toss the insert, and then I put everything in baggies, and I label every single bag.
Mike cringed if you couldn't see. So
we tossed about 500 inserts here, so
I want the game to be able to close.
yes.
Yeah.
Right?
And when you sleeve the cards, some inserts, there's not enough
gonna
room.
work.
It just has to go.
It's not
That's a
going to
good
work.
topic, yeah.
Yep, you bag everything and you label everything, and at the end of the night, right? And what's great about doing that is also as a teacher of games, I'm big on making sure that the folks that are learning the game are being a part of the setup. I need them to be invested in this with me, because if they didn't spend time setting up with me and they just showed up and the dinner's ready, right? There's no investment in making sure that the meal is good, right?
I get
If
that.
you're preparing the meal with me, if you're setting up the board, not only are you invested in that setup time to continue to play the game, but you're also learning about the game as we go.
Correct.
Hey, I'm going to hand you these power tokens, and you're going to get the weakness cards, and you're going to get, right, and I hand them out with the little labels on them so they know, okay, these are weakness cards. And all right, so everybody gets 4 of those. So now everyone's learning a little bit about the game as we go.
True.
So, Dynamo and baggies, I like it.
Yeah. And then you've got some games manufacturers, some companies now that are going the extra mile, and one that kind of jumps to my mind a little bit is Wingspan, a game that's gotten a lot of press and a lot of talk recently. But they, when they came out with their recent expansion, the European birds, and they actually have just recently announced another expansion. I can't remember what the name.
I think it was Australian, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like the Australia, New Zealand birds. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the title is, but anybody who's gotten that expansion, you'll know that the original insert was nice. It kept everything pretty square, nice and neat and tidy. It kept all the cards in a pretty unique container that allowed you to store the cards, and then it was a way you could flip over the lid and then put the cards on top for the market, and it kept them nice in the market.
It was part of the game.
Exactly, it came with the base game. Yeah, it was part of the setup of the game and the way that, you used it during the game. When they came out with the expansion, all of the cards now didn't fit back into the original, so when they came out with the expansion, it was basically just new cards. There was a few new pieces and chits and things, but they also came out with a new plastic container that now would contain all the old cards, all the new cards. It fits mostly back in the box like it should.
I can fit everything.
Yeah, I can just barely. Just barely. So any more comes out, I think I'm going to be in some trouble. But so you've got some manufacturers now. Stonemaier Games has been good with that. Their big box that they came out with, the box expansion. They were one of the first companies to do that for Scythe, because all the expansions, all the stuff just wouldn't fit back in the original box. So they're making these options of ways that people can either spend a little money to upgrade, or again with the expansion to Wingspan. I don't know that there really was. I'm sure there was some cost that was built into the expansion for that, a little bit of additional plastic or whatever. But giving people that option and being able to fit it all back in the box is something that I think they need to think about. And so many games, popular games especially, having expansions. If you foresee that you're designing a game and making a game and it's being well received early on, I think you really need to put some thought into that in designing the box and thinking ahead for the expansions and how you're going to allow people to upgrade and keep things together. So
Res Arcana comes to mind
There
with
you
that
go.
one because the base game, there are all these empty spaces within the insert, and and they finally came out with that expansion and everything fit in there perfect. And there's still a couple of spaces left, so I'm sure they're going to
more
plan
to
on.
come. Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
Chronicles of Crime did that. They
Yeah,
set up
exactly,
their
right.
insert
Exactly.
specifically ready for expansions,
Yeah.
which is great. Well, gentlemen, great topic today.
Yeah, it's been fun.
That was good content. Yeah.
And that's just a few. I had a lot more in mind, but I know we can go on all night talking about this. But this is, we
save
got to
that.
save some of that for the next one.
Yeah, part 2. Yeah.
Absolutely.
At this point, we will wrap it up. This was the Beans and Dice podcast live recording at Your Turn, a board game cafe in Zephyr Hills, Florida. Dan, tell us how we can find out more information about Your Turn.
You can go to info at Your Turn Cafe to send us emails. You can just Google Your Turn Cafe. That is our website also. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Most of the updates will go out on Facebook when we have events and things coming up. And our website, you can find out all the information on getting reservations for tables here on a daily basis. Anytime you want to reserve a table, go to the website, pay just $5. You're good to go.
See what games you have.
Yeah, incredible selection of games, great food,
Yep.
great coffees and teas, and real nice setup here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Carlos,
I'm Rob.
Michael.
And Daniel.
and this is the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about
How we game.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Good night.
You're listening to the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about how we game.